everybody, welcome to our second workshop. My name's Garrett. I'm the founder of Ambition in Motion. I'm so happy, I'm so excited, I'm so grateful to have you here for our second workshop. I am pumped for you to experience our guest speaker later on this evening. But before we get started, I want to touch up on a couple of quick points. So you are starting your mentor relationship. That is awesome. Hopefully you've had your first conversation. I'd love to learn about it. Post maybe some of the key talking points that you've had for your first meeting in the comment section. Would love to learn about how that first meeting is gone. But yeah, this workshop's all about how to network in a genuine way and really make the most out of it. This workshop should be about an hour long. As a reminder, I'm going to ask you 3 questions during the duration of this workshop. Once we have asked those questions, I'll expect you to answer them. That's how you get credit for participating and being here at the workshops. I'm really excited for you to experience our guest speaker tonight. I'm really excited to dive into this. Now, this is what's really key. I mean, genuine networking is such a pivotal component to building rapport, to getting job offers, to getting promotions. Really, if you can hone this skill, if you can hone this ability, you will be set professionally, because ultimately, at the end of the day, your hard skills, that being your ability to crunch numbers, to do some form of engineering, to do some form of science, like all those things are pretty good. They're very easy to measure. So it's very clear whether or not you are better or worse than somebody on a hard skill. But your soft skills are much more difficult to measure. But those soft skills are really what's going to set you apart. I mean, as they say, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And this is the workshop about how you can know more people and have a stronger bond with them, because then it goes to your reputation. Because if you have a reputation for treating people like garbage, you're not going to have a great reputation. People are going to want to help connect you with other people. If you come in with low energy, if you come in with a bad state, if you come in talking trash about other people, you're not going to put yourself in a good position. And so I want to be very clear. When it comes to networking, when it comes to building a relationship, it is not all about the transaction. If you're coming into a networking situation, you're thinking to yourself, what is in it for me? You are not going to have a positive outcome. I promise you on that. I really want to be clear. It's not all about landing the job or the internship. Sometimes it's about building the relationship and then playing the long game, because ultimately that may turn into an opportunity because they built a rapport with you. But if you burn them, or if you make them feel like you are using them to get to a location that you would like to be, they can smell that on you. They can smell it from a mile away. And that is not great. As they say, desperation reeks. You do not want to be desperate. You don't want to be perceived as someone that's a user or a taker. You want to be a giver. You want to be someone who gives energy to relationships. The first place to start is being genuine with how you talk to people and how you build rapport with people. Now, this is something we talked about last time, but it is so important, and that is the 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. As we've said before, your state is most important. So physically, how are you? Physically, what is going on with your world? Physically, I don't care what is happening. If you recently broke up with your significant other, if your dog just died, if you got some bad news, I don't care what's going on. If you get up, if you shake it out, if you let it loose, you will get yourself into a positive state. So I want to challenge you to do that right now. I want you to get up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah, just let it out, let it loose, let it go. Because what you're doing is you're releasing blood to your brain. You're releasing endorphins. You're getting yourself into a state conducive for retaining information. If you're just sitting there on a couch or in a chair in a slumped over position, your likelihood of retaining any of the information we talk about tonight is severely diminished. But if you come in standing up, moving around, getting your blood flowing, you are much more likely to retain this information. Have you ever found it difficult in a classroom setting to remember what your professor says if you've been sitting for 3 hours? That's why 3-hour lectures really struggle to work. They're not very effective because people are not moving around. Your brain needs blood to retain information. So get up, get moving, get out, get loose. Now, the second key is your story. What is the story you tell yourself for why you will or will not be successful? I promise you right now, you will achieve up to the goals that you set for yourself in life and no higher. So you might as well shoot for the stars and land on the moon than shoot for the moon and end up in nowhere. Because if you are not focused about where you want to be, or really having a big, hairy, crazy, audacious goal for yourself, what are you doing? Like, are you just saying to yourself, like, I'm cool with winding up short, with, settling down and just settling for everything in my life? If that's the case, this program's not for you. I can tell you that right now. This program's not for you if you're trying to settle. But if you're someone that wants to go for it, if you want to go big, if you want to go out there, for the opportunities that you want to see in your life, this program is absolutely for you. Let this program be a springboard. Let your mentor be a Sherpa that's guiding you up this mountain of life and success and help you get to where you want to be. This is someone who wants to guide you, that wants to help you. They wouldn't have signed up for this program if they weren't interested in seeing you succeed. So I want to be very clear with you. What is the story for why you will be successful? Understand that, hone it, be prepared. In fact, I would challenge you to write this down. Write it on a piece of paper. It's more likely to stick in your mind if you write it on a piece of paper of where you want to be. Stick it up on your wall. Stick it up on your desk. Stick it up on your dresser. Stick it up on your mirror. Something that's going to remind you of where you want to be in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year from now. That will help you set the target of where you want to go. Because if you don't set these goals, you're going to be on a path that's got really no clear outcome of where you want to go. So the last part is your strategy. What are you going to do to set yourself apart? Now, when it comes to strategies, I'm a big believer in routines. When I say routines, I mean literally getting into a daily habit that you can practice regularly so then you can be better at a skill. We think about habits sometimes in a negative light because we think about people just being addicted to bad actions, but I believe that habits can also be attributed in a positive light as well. What is a positive habit you can get into to help you build more genuine relationships? I believe one thing you can do is to be intentional about having an informational interview every single week with a new person, with a new professional in your field. You can leverage LinkedIn. You could go to a professor's office hours. You could talk to a friend of yours whose parent works in the field that you're interested in working towards, or a family friend that you know works in the field that you're interested in working towards. If you set up one informational interview every single week, and by an informational interview, I want to be very clear. This is a conversation. This isn't an interview. You're not trying to get a job from this person. You're just trying to get knowledge about what this work is like. Set up one of those a week. I can promise you they're going to start making introductions for you. They're going to start helping you get to where you want to be. By the way, if your goals change over time, that's okay. That's totally okay. You can share with them how your goals have changed, and they're going to want to keep helping you over time. I'll give you a perfect example of this. As an entrepreneur, I set goals all the time. I have a board of mentors. I literally have about 50 to 100 mentors that I send once every 3 months an update of what's going on with the business. Here's the thing though, I've pivoted this business many, many times. Now, initially when I first got started, I was thinking to myself like, oh, well, they're my mentors. Like, if I tell them that I've pivoted, will they think I'm a total failure? Will they not want to help me anymore? What I found is that is absolutely not the case. They're always there to support me. Mentors that have been with me for 5+ years still give me guidance, still help make introductions, still help me out and support me as my mission has grown, as my goals have grown. That is the nature of mentoring relationships. That is the nature of relationships in general. You should keep your network up to date with what is going on in your world because they will want to see you succeed. But the key is that you ask them for something specific. When I meet with my mentors or when I send them an email, I ask for something very, very specific. I don't say, hey, if you know anybody in XYZ space, if you could introduce me, would love that. Why? Because it's not at the top of their mind. What I'll do is I'll physically go onto their LinkedIn profile, look at who they're connected with and say, hey, I noticed that you're connected with Jane Doe, John Doe, Shelby Doe, and Jenny Doe. I know that you may not be connected with all 4 of those people, but if you are connected with one of them, would you mind introducing me? Here's an email template that you could copy and paste to introduce me. Now I've made it extremely specific and easy for them to take an action step to help me out. And that is how you can continue to grow your relationships, your network, and build rapport with people. And just keep them in the loop of what's going on in your world. So I just want to be very clear. It's about building genuine relationships, and it's about when you're building those genuine relationships and then you're asking them for introductions or connecting with more people through those relationships, being very specific and making it as easy as possible for them to help you out. I really want to stress this. It's so important. Genuine networking. If you can take anything from this whole program, if it's genuine networking, and by genuine networking, I mean really listening, taking an active and keen interest in who you are speaking with, you are going to be set. You're going to be in a great position. Because at the end of the day, it's not your elevator pitch. It's not going to be anything about you that makes someone interested in you. It's going to be about your ability to listen to them. In fact, I can tell you multiple times where I didn't say a word in a conversation. I just nodded my head yes and asked questions about things that somebody else has said. And at the end of the conversation, whether that be 30 minutes or 60 minutes long, they said, man, Garrett, you are such a great conversationalist. Or, gosh, I feel like I just had such a great conversation with you. And the funniest thing about it is I didn't actually say a word. The point is this: people love to talk about themselves Why? Because people are really interested in things that they're interested in. People wouldn't choose to spend the time that they have on this earth in the way that they did unless they thought it was the most optimum way of spending their time. Therefore, things that interest them, things that they choose to spend their time on, are things that interest them and ultimately make you interesting to them because you've taken an interest in those actions and activities. I hope that makes sense. If you want to rewatch that, take that back 30 seconds because I think it's really important. People, ultimately, at the end of the day, people care about themselves. People care about things that they are interested in because they've chosen to spend the time that they have on those tasks. So with that said, I'm excited to jump in to our guest speaker this evening. Really, the whole point of this workshop is about genuine networking. By the way, if you have not connected with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'll add you to our LinkedIn group where we discuss different topics and you can add different topics, ask any questions, and expand us to our entire Ambition in Motion network. Connect with me. I'll add you to the group. But yeah, I'm so excited to get started. Let's jump into our guest speaker this evening. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm excited to dive into our topic of how do we network in a genuine way. We're in this really strange time period. We got COVID. We are trying to get our foot in the door. We are trying to make an impact on people. Maybe we're networking virtually. Maybe we are meeting people in a non-traditional manner, like, over Zoom. Maybe we're just, I don't know, maybe we're attempting to network, but like people are wearing masks and we're not, instead of doing handshakes, we're doing like elbow bumps. We're trying to find the way that is most appropriate for us to network, but also allows us to make positive, impactful relationships. We're here to talk about essentially how do we network in a genuine way, not a transactional way. We've got a great guest with us here this evening. We got Chris Tejeda. Chris has extensive experience in marketing and business development within the industries of data and architecture, engineering, and construction. Chris is currently the marketing and business development manager for Capital Engineering Consultants. Chris, thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Great to talk to you.
So, Chris, I kind of gave an overview of who you are and what you're doing, but I'd love if you could elaborate, just share with us a little bit about what you do and how you got into this type of work and the power of just networking in a genuine way and not necessarily a transactional way.
Excellent. My little bit of my background, I come from an ad agency background. Not only I was 12 years old, my dad worked for an ad agency. I went on a photo op with him to Maui. I grew up in Hawaii, and it hooked me. I mean, the glamour of marketing got me. Now, the reality of marketing is much different, as we well know. But that got me going in marketing, and then my marketing career led me to work in transition to business development. Less marketing operations, knocking stuff out, creative, versus business development. And business development is much more, almost exclusively, about planning and crafting and developing and nurturing relationships with potential business partners and industry folks that will help support your business. And so for me, it's all about relationships and all about communicating in ways that create an opening, create a warm feeling, for lack of a better term, and create this desire to just hang out with people and them to hang out with you so that those conversations can happen around business and then move the business along. But there's also a lot of work behind that, in that you have to plan who you want to talk to and why, and a lot of this other stuff, and targeting people and so forth seems very, I don't know. There's a part that you have to kind of overcome the fact that you're going after to talk to someone for a purpose. But that doesn't mean you're not genuine. That doesn't mean you're not interested in them and or their world and their business and their lives. And so that's the balance that you have to strike.
So wait, what you're telling me is your job is to be somebody that others like to hang out with, and vice versa, they want to hang out with you?
A good chunk of it is you have to be able to create these openings that people are, when you call or when you visit or when you come up to them at an event, they're willing to shake your hand or bump your elbows and engage with you and be interested in you, so that you can create these openings for conversations about work and about the opportunities that they have. And so it seems kind of sneaky or manipulative, not in any way. There is no, and this is where the genuineness part for me comes in how I network, whether it's on the Zoom or in person with a mask or no mask, or at an event, whatever it is. And that is to really have a genuine, no BS, straight up curiosity about them, who they are, what they do, how they do it, why they do it, all these kinds of questions, that genuine curiosity that resides in all of us, making sure that I focus on that. And everybody loves to talk about themselves, and have someone be interested in them. That's the key for me to create these openings, is to be genuinely interested and curious about this other human being. Not necessarily what they do and how they do their business, but as the person.
That's really interesting. I think a lot of students might be hearing this and think like, ah, well, I want to pursue a career in engineering, or I want to pursue a career in finance, or I want to pursue a career in, you know, an area that I don't necessarily think I would need to have these skills. They're only hiring for me for my technical abilities. I don't know if I need to have the ability to you know, build strong relationships, because if they're hiring me for my engineering, it's about my grades and my ability to, you know, do something technical, right?
Sure, that gets you in the door, and that's as far as it gets you. You have to work with people. You have to design buildings for other people to pay for. You have to design machinery, engineering, architecture, construct other structures for people. And to get those contracts to do the work, some person has to say, yes, I like you, or I want to work with you. Having a quality engineering or architecture construction is like anteing. Everybody has that. What's going to separate you from all those other folks who have quality and this and been in the business for 5 years, 10 years, whatever it is your relationship, your ability to create a relationship with that person. People like doing business with people they like. Yeah. That is human nature.
And you're working with engineers, and that's the funniest part. I would imagine. So do you have a story of a time that you worked with an engineer that, like, on paper, brilliant, absolutely brilliant, the smartest, would knock your socks off with his brains or her brains, but socially you could not stand them. You couldn't stand being around them because they didn't care about you. They didn't care about the relationship building process. They didn't care about really anything else except for getting their work done. And, like, what happened to that person? How did that work out?
Well, a couple. There's engineers by their very nature in a lot of ways, and I work with a lot of them, are linear, factual, right brain kind of focused people, not the left brain soft skills people, for the most part. There are unicorns out there who can do both, and they're wonderful. A lot of my job is taking these shoe-staring engineers to these events, or to these webinars, or to these types of networking opportunities, whether it's direct person to person or in a bigger group, and guide them and help them, introduce them, and get them talking about their job, about their work, while still trying to be interesting. And it's a challenge because it's naturally against their kind of grain of who they are in a lot of ways socially. But what I find is that these folks love to talk about the minutia of their work, and you give them a problem to solve, they're like kids in a candy store. They love it. And so long as you don't let them go too far in the weeds, it's not bad from a conversational standpoint if you get someone who's interested on the other side. But the story I have is, and this was a senior engineer. This guy's been around for 15, 20 years. I met an architect at an event. We were both, it was our first time at this event, and this architect was kind of like staring at his phone, kind of like looking around, not knowing anyone. And I was kind of doing the same thing, going, who do I know here? And I didn't know anyone. And I came up to him, I said, you don't know anybody, it looks like, and I don't know anybody. Who are you? And he goes, oh, I'm so-and-so from this architecture firm. I'm like, great. And we started talking. We find out we both have 3 daughters. We both are this and that, and we have all these connection points. And we said, I have to do lunch with you. Let me grab a couple of my engineers, and we'll set it up. Oh, yeah. And so I go into the next day to my office and say, we're going to set up a lunch with this architecture firm. Oh, we've done a lot of work with them in the past at various levels. Great. Let's go. Next week, we have lunch. First thing these guys start talking about is project work and how this works. This flange combobulator works best for this kind of thing. And I'm just like, time out. How are you doing? How's work? How's your life? How's the family doing? I heard last time you talked, your daughter was going on a trip. How'd that work out? things like this. It was just like, guys, we're people. Let's be people first. And we got a lot of time for all that engineering speak. Let's just be people first and enjoy each other's company and create a little connection of life. And then we can move on. And they all just kind of stopped and chatted, and I didn't really kind of hammer them that hard, but it was more of, let's get back to the human side, and we can leave the engineering side alone for just a moment, and then we can move forward. So it happens to them all, and in a lot of them, and so it's a challenge for them to move beyond that. I'm staring at a computer screen. I'm staring at, I'm solving a problem. If I don't have a problem to solve, what am I doing?
This is a really interesting point. I think, to your point, there is huge power in the ability to build relationships and bonds there, because so often business is relational. I think sometimes what I'll hear is this term seller doer, where a lot of times as an engineer, and I know we keep focusing on engineering, but you're in an engineering firm, so It's easy to focus on that. But as an engineer, you think to yourself, okay, I am, I'm just doing the doing, I'm just solving of the problem. But what we often see in the real world is that you are a lot of times a seller doer, where you're saying, hey, I need to sell my work and the efficacy of the solution that I'm proposing to this other client or this other company, because if I can't build that relationship paired with the solution, they're not going to make the decision based on the solution itself. They're not going to go with the cheapest option. They're going to go with those that they like, even if it means paying a little bit extra for it. Which means that as an engineer, it is a critical, or really for that matter, anybody for that matter, it's critical that you focus on building genuine relationships where people actually like you, because if they don't, they're not going to work with you.
Not at all. The engineers, first of all, the word selling is such a taboo word in the engineering world, when in fact, that is what they're doing. They are selling their ideas. They're selling their concepts, their way of doing things. And so they have to convince other human beings that what they're saying is the right way. And is there multiple ways to get to the same cool building, or water chilled or air cooled, or whatever the mechanical system is, or whatever the HVAC system, whatever it is? There's lots of ways to get there. This is my solution, and this is why. Great. Do I trust you? Oh, how do I trust you? Well, there's a human side of it there. And so making sure that the communication and the relationship and the connectivity that you have with these people inspires trust, not just in the work, but in the person. I'm going to look across the table from you, and you're going to tell me that this is going to work. And so when I talk to my bosses, they're going to be happy with the work that I just finished. And the client, the end client, say it's a school, the teachers are going to be happy. And I'm not going to have to hear about all this other garbage. They're just trying to protect themselves, just like you are. You're protecting your firm from anything else. But it's in that relationship and that ability to pass through not only the front end problems, but the ongoing problems or challenges that come up with every project. Architect, engineer, construction, any of the professional services, problems come up. And how you are able to communicate, engage, trust each other, and work through it really will help define how good the project, how profitable the project, and how well the project comes out.
So if I'm hearing you right, trust is not only one's credibility with their accolades, it's also their credibility with their relationships.
Without question.
Cool.
Without question. Getting credibility, engineering-wise, does take some time. And maybe the first 5-10 years you're working as an architect, engineer, construction, you got to show up and you got to deliver a quality product and prove that you've got the knowledge and experience to deliver a project. That's now ante. You have to move beyond that to get work. You'll get work just for being a low ball price and you can do the job. Great. Is that how you want to build a business though? Probably not. That's not a profitable or more profitable way of doing work. But when you have someone who calls you because they know you can do it, and I trust you because last time we had all these problems and you worked with me and you got it figured out and you took my considerations. Yeah, there was an easier way to do it, but I have all these other considerations as the owner or as the architect that I have to deal with that I need you to hear and listen to so that you're incorporating that into the solution as well, not just the engineering cold blow. So you're able to work with cooperate, congeal with, and then make the solution. But all that extra work beyond just the math is the human relationship.
Yeah, I like that. I like that, Chris. You know, I guess I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question real quick. Post in the comments section, what is a go-to kind of icebreaker question you like to ask somebody, a stranger you've never met before, just to get to know them a little bit better? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn, what is your go-to just icebreaker question? So, Chris, I love to chat about students because, you know, we've been talking very heavily about sales and business development and relationships and that sort of thing. And as a student, you might think, you know, I'm not even at that point yet. I got to even get my first job or internship. How are sales and business development just like getting your first job or your first internship, or any job or internship for that matter?
You are selling yourself. Every time you go to an interview, every time you type up a resume, that is a job proposal. Look at me. I can deliver this product, aka me, to do the work that you need to get done. It's the same process. You have to create a proposal, aka another resume, CV, whatever it is, that demonstrates your willingness to do the job, and you can do the job. And beyond that, if you bring other skills, like you can buy a Yugo, oh, that dates me. You can buy a tiny little car and it'll have wheels and doors and an engine, you're good. But you can buy a Tesla and it has all this incredible electronics and so forth. If you, in your resume, yeah, I've done this and this and this, but then you also say, I am part of this organization or am an active member in this organization. All these human connective points showing that you're in the industry, whatever that is, showing that you are interested in the industry beyond just the work, that you're interested in the growth of the whole industry or of yourself to grow and develop. Those are the extras. Those are the bonus points that you get for every resume that you put out there. You're able to say things like, beyond just the work, I care about the whole industry and how the industry is moving forward and how I can be a part of that. Those are the things that create connections with owners and job providers.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like that why of like, why do you do your work? I think students are thinking probably a lot about that as it pertains to their own job search and maybe as a student, you're still figuring that out. Maybe you're still figuring out, why do I do my work? What about this industry or this field interests me? I think you're probably going through that thought process. But Chris, for you, why do you do your work? Like, what drives you?
You know, I am and have been and acknowledge the fact that I am a people person who is also a nurturer. I've had 3 daughters. There's a lot of nurturing that has to go into that. But being a people person, I get my energy and get excited about meeting new people, engaging with people. That's why COVID's been horrible for me. I've had to really stretch to find new ways of connecting people, which has been a good stretch. But for me, it's a people person. And then that's just my personal reason I step out there and why I'm comfortable and enjoy it. But then the bigger purpose, the greater purpose than beyond me is, well, one thing I thought of was my current firm, we're a mechanical engineer firm. And we came up with this recently, we're in the middle of a rebrand, so I'm gonna tease it a little bit. We bring life to buildings. And from a mechanical standpoint, understanding that the air, electricity, and the water, this is what makes humans alive, electricity and water and and it's like, we bring life to these buildings. And so when I'm stopping to think about, okay, why am I trying to talk to this architect? Because we want to bring more life to buildings and do it in a way that's efficient and energy and all this other stuff, but bringing that life, making structures and places that live and come alive within communities is a wonderfully bigger than me kind of mission. And the community itself, the people who build are creators. And there's nothing, and when I got into marketing, because I loved creating ads and logos and brochures and all stuff, that instant gratification of you get when you finish something, you get, wow, you create. And being around creators is a very life-affirming, growing kind of process for me. And these engineers, though they don't want to admit it, are very creative and creators and get into it. It's really quite fun when they're excited.
That's cool. That makes sense. That's interesting. You brought something up earlier that I love to dive into because I think it's probably important to talk about, and that's COVID and its impact on networking. Because I would imagine that There's a lot of people, whether they be students or professionals, are just a little bit rusty. They're a little bit shaky when it comes to like we've been cooped up in our house for the last, year and a half.
Yeah.
I mean, and we still very well may be cooped up in our house for a little while longer, but how can we go about shaking off the rust and just like, I guess maybe the first question is one, networking a skill that you can practice to get better at, or are you just naturally born with it? I think a lot of students think, oh, I'm horrible at networking and I'm just always going to be horrible.
No. It's a skill. It's absolutely a practice skill, like piano, like rock climbing. You're not going to go rock climbing without a rope when you first start. And it takes a while to build up the muscles and the reflexes and the techniques to create networking spaces. And that's really what we're trying to do, and create connectivity between human beings. And so are there more people, just like there are better people at climbing rocks than others? Everyone can do it. It does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of courage to get the ball rolling. And sometimes for some, these are senior marketers I'm talking about, every time they step into a room or a Zoom meeting that they don't know anybody, they get the nerves, they get the tightness of the chest and the blood pressure up and everything else. And so it can affect you, but that doesn't mean it has to control you. And you can absolutely do this. It does take practice. It is, my suggestions are to find yourself a mentor, a networking mentor, somebody who can walk you in and introduce you and then leave you alone to let you talk, and then get you going and watch how other people network. Again, and you listen to how they do it. I mean, listening is probably one of the best skills you can do in networking, because the more you let other people talk, the better you're doing. And so these skills of learning, of creating entrances, leaning on people that you know. One of my favorite questions is find somebody I know and say, who do I need to know here? And people love being an expert and say, oh, well, you need to know this guy, you need to know this person, that kind of thing. And then you now have a warm entree to go talk to somebody.
That's cool. I'd love to learn your thoughts on this. One thing that I always find fun to do, I'm a huge foodie. I live to eat. I don't eat to live. And when I'm at like a networking event and there's food, especially like a charcuterie board where you've got multiple options that you can combine together, you got like cheeses and meats and pretzels and almonds and all the other things. I mean, I've been at networking events where I'll sit at like the food table for like hours and just chat with people, be like, ooh, that Americana almond will go great with this like Gruyere spread or whatever. And the point is that's some of the best, at least for me, it's a great way to start conversations, especially with people I've never met before, because I feel like breaking bread, the idea of breaking bread, eating with people is such a conversational topic, a door opener, regardless of who the person is. Do you ever subscribe to something like that, especially when you don't know people?
Absolutely. There are lots of ways. I know some people hang out at the bar. I'm not a big drinker. I'm more of a teetotaler, have a beer or two, whatever. Some people hang out at the bar and just see it, because everyone eventually goes over to the bar so they have something to hold. And so you can engage with folks there. The food court or the food, wherever the food aren't, chatting it up, talking to the wait staff or the catering staff, learn a little bit about what's going on with this food, like it's a Gruyere and a chip and this and that thing with fish eggs or whatever. Get a little information. And then when someone's coming out, oh, have you tried the fish egg Gruyere thing? Oh, it's fabulous. And you start to create little food connections. Asking questions about people. What are you doing this summer? What are you doing this winter? Oh, where are you going? I'm going on vacation. Where are you going? Oh, yeah. And then being able to communicate. Oh, I've never been there. Tell me, why are you going there? Stuff like the questions just kind of start to flow once you start. The more questions, I'm always thinking about the next question. How else can I dig into this person's information and their lives and their families and their pets and their I use Hawaii a lot as an opening gambit, so to speak. I kind of drop in there, oh yeah, I grew up in Hawaii and this and the other thing. And so, oh, I've been there. That's everybody wants to go to Hawaii or has been there, and it's like and it's always a positive for the most part. And so it's a nice kind of a thought that everyone has, love Hawaii, but then you can take it from there about vacations, about family, about all these other things. So you got to find those things. And that's just come up from my life that has come up. People respond to Hawaii a lot. So I lean into that every so often. But there's all kinds of things that you can do. that are part of that create those little connection points. And then once you create a connection point or an awareness point, then you just kind of start probing and start asking. But again, the first thing we talked about was the genuineness. You gotta want to know what they're talking about. If you're like, yeah, tell me about Hawaii, they're not. It's so insincere, and people will walk away from you or talk smack about you. And so you really have to care. And if you're not in a moment of caring about what this person is talking about, just walk away, find somebody else.
Ooh, I love that. I love the kind of to your point earlier about curiosity, but also the willingness to care, I think is super powerful. I think if you're a student watching this, you might think to yourself, like, but what if I don't care about Hawaii? What if I don't care about XYZ thing? It's like, at the end of the day, it's important that if you can find something that you can find mutual benefit, like relationship with, that's great. I always like doing it with food. I love being the food guy. I love, like, kind of to your point, going up to the caterer to figure out what else is there. And you're like, oh, did you try the Swedish meatballs? They're like, Swedish meatballs? I didn't even see that on the appetizer. They're like, oh yeah, they're running around with it. They got a tray over there. I think there's ways to become that mutual kind of connector. Sometimes it can be via sports. Sometimes it can be via news. Sometimes it can be via events. There's a lot of different things that you can do to bridge that gap. But I think what's probably really important is that you find areas within different people's lives that you can be genuinely curious about. And if you can find points of similarity, like you both went to the same alma mater or you both grew up in the same area, that can be huge for building that strong bond and that strong relationship.
Yeah, and that speaks to planning. Networking, the professional networkers, and I don't know if I consider myself a professional networker, but I'm a professional business developer. They do a lot of research about who they expect to see at these events or Zoom calls, and they look into them. And thank God for LinkedIn, because you give up a lot of information on your LinkedIn page about who you were, where you worked before, what school you went to, the types of things you're interested in the groups that you associate with, and it gives you a lot of data to try to see about creating connections. My son went to the University of Oregon. Go Ducks. I have to say it because I still owe them money. And it's like, oh, you start throwing the O up, or you start talking about the Ducks. Oh, you'll get the Beavers, the Oregon State Beavers. Oh, I'm a Beaver. Oh, no, I'm a Duck. Blah, blah, blah. And you start talking football. You start talking Ducks or whatever, the schools, whatever that is. And it comes organically. You can't force that stuff. And you have to be able to shy away from it. If someone, like religion and politics, minefields when it comes to creating connections. And now somebody may come at you with a hardcore political question, and you can defer or be a little bit more neutral, unless obviously you got a hard opinion on something, but you take the risk of disconnecting from that person based on what you say. So if your goal is to connect, you may want to avoid those
topics. Probably avoid those topics. That makes sense. Yeah. So let's talk about body language for a second. I feel like, there's a lot of students could say, okay, I did my research. I knew exactly who I wanted to speak with. I went up and spoke with them, and then done. Like they didn't chat with me for long. I don't know what I did. I don't know what's going on. Like, what happened? Could our body language be a contributing factor for why someone may not want to have a conversation with us?
Without question. I talk to a lot of engineers and architects and structural engineers and some other folks, and I'll go up to them because I know that they're going to be working on a project or something, and I'm like, so how you guys doing this and everything? And they'll be like, oh yeah, we're doing good. You good? Yeah, okay, yeah. And then they get this whole distant, not wanting to engage. I don't care how old. I don't care how, unless you're a supermodel of some kind, male or female. No, you're not going to catch their interest. I got this. I'm a pudgy white guy. What are you going to do? I have to be charming and friendly and engaging. And if they don't want to be engaging, and then you got to move on. I mean, you have to reach out to them in a different way, because if you force a bad situation because you've got this goal to connect, you're going to create a negative connection, and they're not going to want to talk to you. Or if they see you coming, they're going to go the other way, kind of thing. It's a very delicate balance when you're networking and being human. You're being vulnerable or not being vulnerable. You're being creative or you're being silly or being fun. Putting yourself out there is a difficult thing. Just like when you create a design, you're putting yourself out there, and it's hard to, you're opening yourself up to criticism. But you need to do it anyway. If you plan this out, you come out, genuine curiosity, sincere connection, eye contact, not these huge arm motions that I sometimes do, gentle arm motions, because they can be threatening and off-putting. Smiling, natural, relaxed smiling, or at least grinning, facial expression. Eye contact, I want to go back to that. When you are looking at someone eye to eye and you're not pulling away, you're engaging with them. Whether they pull away or not, sometimes people can't handle that.
And then that also goes for video chat too. So as opposed to looking at the person that's in your video, look at the dot on the camera, because that will give you greater eye, because they're going to think you're looking at them.
All right.
Even when you're not
doing this. Hey, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, if I were looking at you, I'd be looking like right there. But
exactly. I have two googly eyes that I have right next to my camera.
Oh,
so it reminds me to.
That's a really good tip. Putting two googly eyes next to your camera, that will get people. Dang, yeah, students, that's a nugget right there. Definitely.
Just around the other side of the thing, and it's just like, okay, look at the googly eyes, because that's who you're talking to. Yeah, that's Garrett right there in that little square. So those kinds of mindsets, and your body, your presentation, it showcases the respect that you have for the event and for the person and for the scenario that you're meeting in. Granted, if you're at the gym, you're gonna look like you're sweaty and gross, whatever. But you're in a networking event and you haven't shaved or combed your hair and your shirt's all wrinkled and things like that, or you ate garlic and your breath is horrible or whatever. You're not respecting the connection space. You really are doing things that are going to be pushing people away physically, whether you're body odor or face or you're didn't take care of yourself, whatever it is. You have to respect that, and it's professional, and you have to engage in that way, just like you would a girlfriend, or a boyfriend. You're trying to set you're doing this dance of a beginning of a relationship. You want to set a good opinion of you right away, because those opinions start like that. And you can't, and a lot of times it takes a lot longer to adjust a bad opinion than it is to create a good one right up front.
Yeah, so I love to just take a moment to ask the students a question real quick. What is one of the biggest body language tips you've ever received, both whether that be physical body language for an in-person event or a virtual event? What is the best body language tip you've ever received? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it, because I feel like there are some additional ones.
Oh yeah,
not have covered.
Posture, headspace, all these things create an appearance or an entree or not for connection.
So when it comes to networking and when it comes to building genuine relationships, so sometimes I'll chat with students and the idea of networking to them is, okay, how can I get someone to give me that internship? How can I get someone to give me that job? What is the fastest way? If I end up finding out they don't have an opening, like, see ya, I'm going to the next person. Why is that bad? Why is that not the right way to go about doing that?
People forget that this industries, architecture, engineering, construction, and other professional services, are very interconnected.
And I would probably say this is the same for all industries for that.
Right. And they're very interconnected. And you never know where the next lead, where the next job offer, internship offer, person, mentor, somebody who can help you along the way. And so if you're creating value for them, meaning being interesting, being insightful about them, curious about them, you're creating value for them. They're enjoying that experience. They can be people who, oh, you're an interesting guy. Oh, no, we don't have any internships right now, but we have in the past, and then you can dive into that. They've opened the idea. Who do you know of anyone who might? I'm kind of interested. I'm curious about that. And who would you tell me not to be? Get their advice about who I should shy away from in any firm. And there's always going to be those ones that grind and aren't really good. Those are the people who you can, if they can't give you something right now, it doesn't matter. You got to collect over time this cadre of people who you can then follow up with or then create another space with. I mean, this is all in the bank. There's like a karma bank, for lack of a better word. The more you go out there, the more you put it out there, the more you're willing to receive information and be curious, the universe will respond. That's the way I think about it. I mean, and so any interaction I have, I'm surprised at how they've come back to me. I was talking to the wife of an owner of a commissioning firm one time. She was a very lovely lady. Her husband was bebopping around and she looked like, why am I here? This is boring. And we started chatting and had a wonderful conversation about family, kids, life. Didn't talk about work at all. The next day I get a text or an email from her saying, you know, thank you for that lovely conversation. I told my husband how great you were and this and the other thing, and I'm going to make sure he does some work with you. Sure enough, 2 weeks later, he calls us up for a quote for a project.
Wow.
And it was just because I just chatted with her. It was nothing. It was just a friendly, good-natured, interested chat. And the same applied about curiosity and everything else. So and to this day, we still have a relationship with that firm and her especially. So you never know. And that's the thing. Are you willing to risk that what this person is saying to you has no bearing on anywhere else in the industry? You can't do that. You'll get signals when they don't want to talk, but you just got to lean into them.
That's such a powerful story. Like, what I really loved about that is the fact that you had no agenda. Like, there were probably other people, business developers there that were like, oh, I got to meet with this owner of this commissioning firm. And all they did was spend the time with this guy at this event where you spent the time with his wife, no agenda whatsoever, and you ended up landing the business. It may not always work out that way, but it's a testament to the power of just being genuinely genuine and just being there and just, being a charismatic human.
Yeah, and caring about other people. Yeah. And being interested in other people and then enjoying the process. If you don't enjoy this process of networking, and you can't overcome your negative objections and your horrible fears, that will hamper your career, because every senior principal and owner of firms and so forth, that's part of the job, is to network, is to create new opportunities for the firm, to keep people hired, keep the cash flowing in, keep the projects rolling in, all this other stuff. It all gets down to these ongoing relationships. 70% of our work is repeat business for an engineering firm because the architect knows us or the school knows us or whatever, because they trust us and they like us and we do good work for them. But the trust and the like comes first. So, and we're the first ones to call. We may be too expensive for some, great, we still got the call. And they can, and in some relationships, they'll say, well, can you sharpen your pencil just a little bit so we can make this work? Yes, we can.
That's interesting. I'd love to take a moment to ask the students another question real quick, a final question just around the topic of fears. I'd love to know, what is your greatest fear when it comes to networking? Post in the comments section. I'd love to learn what it is. And I think the reason why I'm asking this question, because I know just typing it on the computer is probably nerve-wracking in and of itself, but the idea around fear is that is the thing that holds us back from getting what we want. And if we can acknowledge our fear, put it out to the ether, we are much more likely to overcome that fear as humans. And so this is a big courage defining moment, but go ahead, put it out in the safe community. What is your greatest fear? Put it in the comment section when it comes to networking. I would love to learn about that. Chris, this has been a really great workshop. I feel like we've talked about some really great topics as it pertains to just networking in a genuine way, in the positive of powerful relationship building, intentional relationship building, and genuine relationship building. I'd love to learn, is there any other final tips or suggestions you have for our students as they go out pursuing their jobs and internships?
Everyone out there who's listening can network. You have to be able to put yourself aside and be genuinely curious about the other human being in front of you. And that other human being in front of you has the potential to hire you, move your career along, influence your career, provide some value to you. And that's, for me, you have to go into every interaction with that in mind. And it makes it much easier. And get out there and do it. Find a mentor, get some help. If you're terrified just to walk into the room or get onto the Zoom, get some help, study, figure out what it is, however your brain works, to get you over the door and start working. It will benefit you long-term and short-term, now that I think about it. But long-term, this is a skill that will serve you for the rest of your career.
That's awesome. Well, Chris, thanks for being here. Students, thank you all for being here this evening. One final question, Chris, how can our students learn more about you? How can they connect with you? Are you okay with them connecting with you on LinkedIn?
Absolutely. LinkedIn, Chris Tejeda, Capital Engineering, Tejeda. I'm probably the only, there's not many Tejedas out there. Certainly not Christopher Tejedas. Capital Engineering, we're based in Sacramento and in Long Beach and in Portland. Feel free to ping me on LinkedIn. Just mention this podcast so that I can have a little reference point, and whatever questions or however I can help you, because you are going to be someone I want to be interested in learning about.
That's awesome. Chris, I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. Students, thank you for being here. I look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. Have a great rest of your evening, everybody. See ya.